The term naturalism describes a type of literature that attempts to apply scientific principles of objectivity and detachment to its study of human beings, unlike realism, which focuses on literary technique. Naturalists imply a philosophical position for naturalistic writers since human beings are, in Emile Zola's phrase, human beasts. Characters can be studied through their relationships to their surroundings. Through this objective study of human beings, naturalistic writers believe that the laws behind the forces that govern human life might be studied and understood. In the 19th century, French literature concerned the developments in French literature during a dynamic period in French history that saw the rise of democracy and faithful end of monarchy and empire. The period cover spans the following political regimes. First, Napoleon Bonaparte consulate, then the empire after the restoration, Louis XVI, Charles X, July monarchy, Louis Philippe d'Orléans, the Second Republic, Second Empire, Napoleon III, and the first decades of the Third Republic. Naturalism is most often associated with the novels of Émile Zola, in particular his book Les Nouvelles Expérimentales, which is a description of a method that human beings are considered as a product. In this way, they should be studied impartially, without moralizing about their nature. Other influences on American naturalists include Herbert Spencer and Joseph Leconte. From France, naturalism was spread through Europe in the course of the next 20 years, adapting to different national literatures. In Germany, naturalism's outstanding performance in the theatre introduced Arnold Holz and Johannes Scalf, but highlights the brothers Karl Hampam and especially Gerhard Hampton and Hermanni Söderman and Max Hall. In Spain, participate in this movement men commitment to position near the crowd or left as Galdos, Clarín and Vicente Blasco Ibáñez from the conservative perspective can speak of a Christian naturalism. In Latin America, linked to the cult indigenism, represent naturalism the Puerto Rican Matías González García and Manuel Seno Gandia. From Chile, August Dalhalmar and Peruvian Clorinda, who achieved a great success with his novel Apes No Nest. In the United States, the movement came rather late, though you might recognize the naturalism in the works of Theodore Dreiser and American Tragedy, and a significant evolution in the new American journalists, for example, Truman Capote. Naturalist writers thus use a version of the scientific method to write their novels. They study human beings governed by their instinct and passions, as well as the ways in which the characters live were governed by forces of heredity and environment, although they use the technique of accumulating detail pioneered by the realistic. The naturalist thus has had a specific object in mind when they choose the segment of reality that they wish to convey. Naturalistic work often include uncouth or sordid subject matter. For example, Emile Zola's works had a frankness about sexuality along with a pervasive pessimism. Naturalist work exposed the dark harshness of life, including poverty, racism, violence, prejudice, disease, corruption, prostitution, and filth. As a result, naturalistic writers were frequently criticized for focusing too much on human bias and misery.
Arts and naturalism. The main objective is explain different behaviors of the human. Naturalism novel pretends interpret the life through the description of the social environment and discover the law of the human behavior. Arts and naturalism represent realistic objects in a natural environment. Naturalism is focused on details. Frequently, they drew bodies. They thought that the human figure was more important than the environment. Literature and realism. Naturalism is a theory based on representing the human. It has relation with realism. However, it is considered as an extreme form of realism. They think that human actions are controlled by destiny. Characteristics: satire and social complaints. Topic center: sexual behavior. Literature has relation with politics, philosophy, and social context. Genre: there are two genres. The first one is naturalism novel. Novel as a scientific and experimental observation of the human. Naturalism poetry. The naturalism started in 1882 with big problems. Poetry grew up, then poetry was apart. Differences: realism describes middle classes, and naturalism describes social critics. It is based on social issues. It reflects the description of lower classes.
Naturalism is merely a specialized variant of realism. Many authors of the period are identified as both naturalist and realist. Émile Zola was a French novelist and playwright. He is often pinpointed as the genesis of the naturalist movement proper. His famous contribution to naturalism was Le Regumac'h. It has 20 novels that follow two families over the course of 5 generations. The action takes place during the rule of Napoleon III, when the atmosphere in Paris was uncertainly. Then Emile put all the things in his book. Therefore, his concern isn't with character as such, but how characters react to some circumstance. Stephen Crane. Stephen Crane was an American author, one of the first truly naturalist works of literature, and certainly the first in America. His contribution to naturalism was Maggie, a girl of the streets. Crane spent a lot of time in the bowed of Lower Manhattan because he liked to see how poor and immigrant people live, to recollect some information, and he put this information in his first novel. Maggie was unusual for the time in that it perfectly reproduced the ostensibly vulgar dialect of the person portrayed. The book didn't sell, but the person who did read it saw the promise of a new talent in American literature. Then modernists like Ernest Hemingway worked hard to rehabilitate the critical reputation of Crane, and today that reputation is resolutely positive. The other hand, Crane worked hard in other novel. The novel is The Red Badge of Courage. It was fantastic because this novel was set during the Civil War and follows one young soldier's experience of the war. Edith Warren. Edith Warren was an American novelist. She was part of realism, but she produced naturalist novels. Warren's novel concerned in the upper crust of society. Her agenda was to show the unforgiving nature of life at the top of the class structure. Warren had a successful career as a designer of homes and landscapes. This attention to environmental details certainly found expression with her literary production. His contribution to naturalism was a down from. Warren departs from her typical subject matter and attempts a truly provisional narrative. The setting is rural Massachusetts, and the characters are poverty-stricken and hopeless. Unlike her upper-class novels in a adult form, Wharton's tone is cool and unsparing. Frank Norris. Frank Norris was an American novelist. He was influenced by evolutionary theory. Norris' work concerned how civilized man overcame the brute, animal nature that still lived inside of him. His novels are driven strongly played out in fiction, and he was sometimes criticized for making literature that was too scientific and lacking in sympathy. Norris was interested in the theories of life of the poor people. In McT, his famous novel, he studied how ambition and greed derail the life of a moderately successful dentist. Overall, McT is a grim exposition of human nature's inability to rise above instinct. Then, in conclusion, The Naturalist was a famous part were genuinely concerned with improvising the situation of the poor in America and the world.